Magazine.
I am your host, Doc Rotten. And, of course, I'm not Doc Rotten.
Liar! Liar!
I was like, whoa.
Doc is...
Just put it on the teleprompter. He'll read it. He don't care.
Yeah, what's yeah, really.
We're like words in. 5 words in, and it's already... No.
Doc is out of touch. He's incognito today, so he won't be joining us. But this is still Gruesome Magazine, and I am your host, Jeff Mohr. Gruesome Magazine is where we review the very latest in streaming and video on demand horror movies. Each week, my co-hosts, Crystal Cleveland and Dave Dreher, and I will take a look at various spooky, scory, and gory genre offerings. With me this week is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl. Crystal, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Just recovering from, Thanksgiving and getting ready for the next big old holiday here. I have not done any shopping, but it's cool. I'm sure everything will work out.
Better get busy. Do it. My gifts alone are going to take you a couple days.
Definitely.
Rick Baker set, Crystal.
Yeah. There you go. We'll be waiting for it.
I have no idea how much that is.
I'm sitting on my front porch waiting for it now.
I hate to disappoint you, Dave. I guess you're going to be waiting a bit. I hope it doesn't snow.
Damn it.
All right. Rounding out the crew is Dave Dreher from Horror News Radio. Dave, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in a while. What's been going on? Where have we been? Why haven't we been on here?
Well, we did, partially.
Kind of.
Oh, it's because we never said goodbye the last time. And it feels
that's right. Yeah.
Unsettled.
I hadn't seen one of the movies, so I kind of put it on pause and I fell asleep. Or put it on silent.
I think that's kind of unsettling. It just makes you feel like things aren't right,
It's just not right.
All we get is a text. I'm muting and hanging up. What? Dave. All right. And you're getting a little snow. I'm getting we've had a little snow. It's getting to be winter. It was like 9 degrees today, I think.
Oh, man. It ain't that cold here.
Wow.
Cold is coming your way, dude.
Heading this way. It's like 20-something here today, which isn't bad. I don't really consider that cold.
So we've got 2 movies to cover this week, but before we get to our films today, I want to make sure everybody knows that Gruesome Magazine, Horror News Radio, and Decades of Horror are brought to you by ExpressVPN. And in case you don't know, which I guess I knew because of work, but a VPN is a virtual private network, kind of a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. They're used to protect your online traffic from snooping, interference, and censorship. With ExpressVPN, you get rock-solid privacy at blazing speeds, no compromises. And it accelerates your VPN, which I've actually kind of had an acceleration of my internet speed, strangely enough, with ExpressVPN. Their servers virtually everywhere. Is that a pun? I don't know. I guess the servers are real. Choose from 160 locations across 94 countries. Keep your real location hidden from prying eyes. Watch whatever you want. Access any content, no matter your location. Say goodbye to blocked services and websites and be anonymous. Browse and download anonymously. Keep your online activity from being traced. And it is secured, encrypts everything, and there's great support. You can get help anytime, 24/7.
Is there anything it doesn't do, Jeff? It brews a mean pot of coffee.
Yes, it does. Well, at any rate, if you want to sign up for that and give us some credit, you can go to gruesomemagazine.com website and click on the banner, or go to tryexpressvpn.com/gruesomemagazine. Okay. So we have 2 movies this week. The first is Daniel Isn't Real, and then we'll be covering a movie called I See You. Daniel Isn't Real is about a troubled college freshman, Luke, who suffers a violent family trauma and resurrects his childhood imaginary friend, Daniel, to help him cope. It is directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer. Cast includes Miles Robbins, Patrick Schwarzenegger, and Sasha Lane. And oh my goodness, we have some, we'll let Crystal talk about that, but we have some Hollywood ancestry going here. It's a Samuel Goldwyn Films release that will be available on digital and demand December 6th, 2019. So we're going to hand this one to Crystal first. So, Crystal, what were your first impressions of Daniel Isn't Real?
So I really like this movie. I usually don't come out and say that right away, but I really did like this movie. And what Jeff mentioned earlier is Miles Robbins is the son of Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon. And oh my gosh, if he is not the spitting image of his mother, I don't know
isn't he?
who is. Yes, he is. So much so. Actually, it was a little distracting to me for a bit. I was like, wait. Oh my God, he looks so much. I mean, I love Susan Sarandon. I think she is such a beautiful woman. And his evil, or is he evil, counterpart is Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. So that's a trip to me. I don't see Arnold in him at all, but I think both of them did a phenomenal job. Like sometimes you see, you see celebrity child actors and you can obviously tell that it was nepotism that got them their roles, but I think both of these guys deserved the roles that they had. I think the acting was great, actually, with the entire cast. I didn't have a problem with anyone. I thought the story was very, very interesting, and it's one of, I mean, I know I've said this, but it's one of those artistic movies. But it wasn't, and it's like that movie you feel like you should like, but you're not sure if you do. But you typically, when I don't like them, it's because they're pretentious. But this movie is not pretentious at all. It was a very, very smart movie. I think they made a lot of good choices. It kind of teeters on, is it unfortunately mental illness or is it supernatural? You know, and although I feel like we have a pretty sound ending and you can kind of go from there. I mean, I still think it could be open to interpretation. But yes, I liked this movie. That's my first thoughts.
She likes it. And I am openly interpreting it. So Dave, how about you? What are your first impressions of Daniel Isn't Real?
Well, I went into this one a bit concerned because it was being very much ballyhooed as coming from the people behind Mandy, and I did not like Mandy. I was one of the few
I've heard that before.
Yes, and so I was like, oh, good Lord, not another turd from these people. But they got it right this time. I'm with Crystal. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. It tossed us some twists and turns that I didn't really see coming. Very well acted. Some of the stuff I found annoying in Mandy was a little more subdued here. Their use of the lighting and, some of the shot composition wasn't distracting this time around. I found it actually rather interesting and very well laid out. I loved the dollhouse that we see early in the film and that we see again towards the end. I thought that was great, and the way they used the imagery to project, what was going on. I just thought it was pretty spectacular. Yeah, really, other than that, without getting into anything spoilery, I think that's where I'm going to kind of leave it. But this one definitely left a favorable impression on me.
Yeah, it did me too. And we should also make sure and mention that Mary Stuart Masterson plays Luke's mother, Claire, and does an excellent job. I think all in all, this is a really well done in all corners of the filmmaking, I guess. I thought the cinematography was great. It's an interesting take on the subject matter, and I'm kind of with Crystal. We're going to try not to spoil, but yeah, we're dealing with it. Could go a couple of different ways, and it might actually leave it open to you interpreting it either way, I think, because when I got done, I wasn't sure. So, at the very beginning, we see a shootout in a diner, right, or a coffee shop, and just a guy that goes crazy and shoots a bunch of people. And Luke's parents have had a fight, and Luke has left the house and is walking down the street and comes upon the aftermath of this shooting with a bloody body hanging out the door. And within a few seconds, Daniel shows up by his side to be his compadre, his imaginary friend, etc. And his mother later invites Daniel in, thinking he's a completely imaginary, which he might be. So from there we go, and they have lots of interesting development there. We find Luke later on when he's a college student studying, I guess, pre-law, he kind of mentions, but he doesn't do well in crowds, and he doesn't seem to have a girlfriend. And at some point, Daniel appears. Well, he doesn't actually appear. I guess Luke kind of invites him back from his exile. And from that point on, it just goes crazy. There's some interesting effects in here, I think, that I enjoyed. I don't know. I'm with you guys. I think it was really well written. And I don't know how they did it, but they left it totally open to my interpretation anyway. Maybe you guys had something that tipped you one way or the other. But we're going to try to leave that
a mystery.
A mystery.
Which makes it rather difficult to talk about, actually.
It does. It does.
Well, I do think that I definitely left feeling it was one particular way, but that doesn't mean that I'm correct in this. I mean,
yeah, I'm the same way. I how do we say it without being? Are you going the mental illness route or the supernatural route?
I'm going the supernatural route,
yeah,
and there's a couple of reasons.
I'm going the supernatural as well.
Why I believe that it is supernatural. I guess we can. I won't give too much away, but one of the reasons being his meds didn't work, and that was kind of a red flag to me. And also, so I have a brother that's paranoid schizophrenic, and one of the things that they were alluding to him having is schizophrenia, and the timing is kind of off. The fact that he had that as a child, the child event is unusual, like at that age, to have, one instance and then have nothing. Typically it does start to surface around puberty through early 20s, like when the hormones start hitting. So that part was okay, but the earlier childhood thing kind of deviates from, but I mean, there's so many different types of mental illness. I guess there's no guarantees that that's what he had. I mean, his mother had the same sort of issues. She was really,
she was a piece of work.
Yeah, they did a good job with this, because normally this would make me very sad, what happened and how everything went. But I don't know, the way it was laid out, it was very easy for me to take. So I appreciate that. Maybe just because some of it was so messed up, I was like, oh, that's super weird, and that's very uncomfortable. And they left the mother out of certain things, so that was kind of nice. I think had they had too much of the mother, it would have been kind of heart-wrenching for me. But you didn't get to see too much of her anguish and pain. You really saw it from his perspective, and I guess his girlfriend's perspective. But yeah, it's got some cool things going on. I mean, when I think about some of the scenes, were there any practical effects, Dave? I couldn't really tell what was practical and what was CGI. Most of it looked like CGI to me. I think most of the like the morphing effects when we see the kind of the rape scene when Daniel takes over, had definitely CGI there. I think some of the like that, I don't know what, monster demon, whatever you want to call it, that we get little flashes of was definitely, some type of a prosthetic device. Not that there wasn't some CGI enhancement there, very well could have been. And we really only see that thing in quick flashes. So, but I think the practical effects that were there were fine. And even the CGI, I think, for the most part, worked in kind of a trippy, almost drug-induced kind of way. Yeah. Like I always believe in practical effects, but there's just some things you can't.
Yeah, you could, like I said, during that rape scene when Daniel asked for permission to take over and they kind of, their faces morph and, do all that kind of stuff. I don't see any way that you could do that practically.
Yeah, that would be very difficult. Or, I mean, depending upon your budget, I guess. I mean,
you're talking about with Sophie, right?
Yeah.
Because then later there's another one that's, I don't know how they did it, but it almost looks like his face is clay. He takes it and moves it around. And,
he kind of shifts it around. Yeah.
Anyway, I found that really interesting and disturbing for some reason. So we have Hannah Marks plays Sophie, who is, kind of a side character, but a key part of the story. Sasha Lane plays Cassie, who's an artist, kind of a eccentric artist that he meets. That they seem to be hitting off a relationship, and at some point that goes wrong. And I really liked her, and I know she's been in some other things I'm not really familiar with, but or I didn't recognize her, I guess. But I thought I really enjoyed her. Maybe it was the character she was playing, but I thought she was really likable.
She was good, and I liked how she serviced the story because she seemed to be able to have an ability to see past Luke and see Daniel. Because when she paints that painting, she paints the spiky-haired shadow guy, and so she's seeing it. They never really explain it, but she has a shine, if you will, and is able to
shine.
Let me see that. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's nice. I like that. I'm like, ooh. Now, we all agree that this is definitely a horror movie, right? Like that, we're all like completely there with that. With this.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good. Okay,
sure.
I just want to make sure because sometimes I know there's always these debates and stuff, but I mean, even if it were all in the mind's eye, that could be a horror on its own. I mean,
right,
yeah.
Right. And I'm literally not near as picky as that. I'm pretty wide open on what we call horror because otherwise, are you going to say, as soon as you start adding conditions, you can start finding exceptions.
Oh, I agree. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's no supernatural there, and it's not really very bloody. It's just disgusting. And it's super. I shouldn't say that. It's not disgusting. There are disgusting things that happen, but there's also a huge, high level of tension throughout that film. So I don't know. I'm pretty liberal about that stuff, and I think this one goes there. The idea of whether it's mental illness or something supernatural, what makes that really hard to determine or kind of up to the individual, I think, is the idea that, are we seeing it from Luke's point of view? Then we have an unreliable narrator, right?
Exactly. And that's what makes it so interesting. And that's why it's hard to say, because you could say, oh, well, she got it. Did she though? Or did Luke think she did? You don't know.
But that's what makes it so fun and interesting.
Yeah. So there's some neat stuff at the end too. I mean, regardless of what way you think it is, I don't, which version it is, I'm not sure you can still sort of imagine different outcomes at the end from what we see.
I was, with you saying that, I would be super interested to know if they filmed any different endings. Yeah, that would be interesting because I'm like, it could go so many ways with this.
Patrick Schwarzenegger, he starts off a little ambiguous, maybe seems kind of nice. He's trying to help Luke, but soon he goes to the evil, starts to move towards the evil side. Miles Robin as Luke, he really plays a wide range, and he's good at it.
Okay, now you say that Luke, not Luke, Schwarzenegger's character. Yes, Thank you, Daniel. Hello, it's in the title. But as a child, look what he had him do to his mommy.
Right. No.
Yeah.
But when he first shows up,
Horrible.
they're playing and they're buddies, and he's helping them and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
But then
even when he comes back the second time, he starts to turn when Luke starts not taking his advice, because Daniel's like talking in his ear and saying, "Say this, say that," and he doesn't say it. And you can see Luke or Daniel kind of like, "You bastard."
Oh yeah.
And that's where it starts to turn. So.
But that scene with Luke where he comes out dressed with the new suit on and he's blows out some smoke, and I don't know, the look at his face and what he does and how he does it, I thought were great. And then how he talks his way into Cassie's. I'm not giving too much away here. He's got a certain sort of emotional. He's putting out certain emotions and a certain aspect of the personality, and then as soon as he gets in the door, that goes away. He
in the end,
switches back to the dark side. Yeah.
Well, I think she could tell, couldn't she?
Yeah.
I think at the moment that he knew that she figured it out. So, I mean, I guess something else we could technically be dealing with here is, DID, dissociative identity disorder. That could be. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh, schizophrenia with DID. Oh God, what a horrible life! Like that'd be tragic.
It's a pretty good movie with pretty good actors.
Yeah, keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
Just when you think it's one thing, it becomes something else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get our final thoughts, our score, and our favorite scene for Daniel Isn't Real. Crystal, would you start us off?
So. I think it's obvious that I like this movie. I say definitely give it a watch. I think we'll definitely see more from this cast. I'd be shocked if we didn't because they were excellent. I'm going to give it a 3.75. And my favorite scene is cheating on the test. So,
yeah. They used that scene on the Today Show.
Oh, they did?
Oh, did they really?
Yesterday morning this morning, because Maria Shriver was doing a segment on there.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it, and they were like, "Hey, doesn't your son have a movie coming out?"
Patrick's mom, right? Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah." So they showed the scene, and that's the one they showed was the test scene.
I think it's such a sweet scene, and it shows like the positive side. To get to the point where everything is in devastation, they had to have a bond, and I think it helps show their bond.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I like that scene a lot too. It was an interesting way to cheat. That's for certain.
Yes. Stop trying to act like you didn't do it before, Jeff. You know you have.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I went to school before calculators and phones and stuff. So
before calculators? What?
Yeah.
Really? No.
Did you use an abacus?
Yeah. A slide rule.
Slide rule.
I'm not kidding. No, actually.
Are you serious? Stop.
All right, I'm done. Nostalgia over with. Dave, what are your thoughts, your final thoughts, your score, favorite scene on Daniel Isn't Real?
Well, I am with the lovely Miss Cleveland here. I'm also going to give it a 3.75. I found this film totally enjoyable. It kept me engaged the whole way through. Wasn't quite sure where they were heading with things. They would change gears at just the right moment. And I was actually satisfied with the ending, although in talking about it now, it really could have gone either way. In my mind, I definitely reached a conclusion. But I can see where other people may not. Most of my favorite scenes don't really have anything to do with character moments. I just found there's some really cool visual moments in this movie I really liked. I really loved I'd already mentioned it, the house, the way they used the dollhouse when they were trying to lock Daniel up. I thought that was great. But the one that sticks with me the most, and it's literally like a 6-second scene. There's a scene where they're climbing down into the steam tunnels, and we just get a shot of looking up. You don't know it at the time, but it looks like you're looking at an eclipse, and then you realize it's just them moving the manhole cover so they can climb down in. But it's just beautifully structured, and the way it's placed in the film, because it really does look like you're looking up at the sky, and it's just like this eclipse going on, and you're like, all right, so now what? We're going to have some like lunar thing going on? What the hell is this all about? It's like, oh, no, just them moving the manhole cover. But it looked beautiful. I actually stopped the screener a few times and, played it back and forth. I was like, man, I just really like that shot. So I know it's kind of a weird one, but I'm going to go with that one because that shot showed me Mr. Mortimer knows how to compose a scene.
Mm-hmm. All right. For me, I too like this, and this will probably sound like a broken record, but I'm giving this a 3.75 as well. I think this is definitely worth a watch. We should keep an eye out for this one. I did not realize, obviously, Patrick Schwarzenegger, that name jumped out at me, so I looked it up. But Miles Robbins, I didn't catch that right away. So Crystal tipped me off on that one. And he does a really good job. I like the direction and the cinematography, the camera angles. A lot of times you don't know for sure who's in the room, right? Is Daniel with him or not? And where is he in the shot? And sometimes he's in the shot, sometimes he's not. So you don't know. I thought they did a really good job on that. I'm going to say my favorite scene is when the young boys are sword fighting with brooms. Daniel and Luke are sword fighting in the living room of his mother's house. And the thing I really liked about that is that kind of comes back around, and they do a really good job of that. There's a lot of that sort of foreshadowing in the younger relationship between Daniel and Luke that shows up later on in the movie, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It was a nice little bow on the package.
Yeah, it was poetic, a little poetic there.
Yeah. So again, Daniel Isn't Real is from Samuel Goldwyn Films, and in theaters or on digital on demand December 6th. So it's already out there. Seek it out. It's worth the look. Our next film is one called I See You, and not like intensive care unit, but I see you with my eyes. And a short synopsis is, strange occurrences plague a small-town detective and his family as he investigates the disappearance of a young boy. And as we learn a new word that I had no idea what it was before. This one is...
Yes. I didn't know what that was either, so don't feel bad.
I didn't either. Frogging. We'll talk about that. So this one is directed by Adam Randall, and the cast includes Helen Hunt, John Tenney, and Judah Lewis. And this time, let's start with Dave.
Me?
What were your first impressions of I See You?
Well, I had a lot of interest in this because it was filmed here very close to me. And one of my good friends, Mr. Al Tuskus, was the man in charge of the special effects. So I was really anxious to see this one. And this is another one kind of like Daniel Isn't Real. We're left with some questions of just exactly what's going on. This one has an odd structure, which I liked. I really kind of enjoyed it. It was nice seeing Chagrin Falls. This was filmed pretty much entirely in and around the Chagrin Falls area. We see a lot of, hovering shots over the downtown area. Chagrin Falls is very 1950-ish. It hasn't changed much over the years other than the more modern cars. It still pretty much looks the same as it did, 45, 50 years ago.
That's beautiful.
And we get a lot of those type of shots of small town Ohio, America. The big house that they have there right on the lake, which was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it held my interest. Every time we thought it was one thing, there was always just something weird going on, like the silverware missing. And, these when you're like, what?
Yeah,
You're like, what? What the hell does that have to do with anything? So we see one version of the story, and then we kind of go back and we see the actual version of the story, and at some point they kind of coincide, and I just found that fascinating. The whole of seeing it through the eyes of the Helen Hunt character kind of first, and then seeing it through the eyes of the is what they call it, frogging.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, through the frogger, and finding out that as is always usually the case with these things. Nothing is as it seems. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. I found the story to be very well written. Again, well acted. Everything was good. The mask that Al made sorry, Al. I wasn't really sure what it was at first. It almost looks like a monkey to me, but it's supposed to be a frog. It's supposed to be a frog.
Sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense later on at the very end.
It does. It does. When I was first looking at it, because I posted up when I was watching the screener for this, I posted it up, and Al put up a picture of the mask he must have it at his house. He's like, "Look familiar." But at the time, I'm kind of like, "What is that? Why is that there? What's that mask mean?" But it does. You're right. In the course of the story, it all
even beyond frogging. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all good. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I love when it all makes sense. So, yeah, my first impression on ICU is see it.
See it. Aha. Okay. Crystal, what are your first impressions on ICU?
I love this movie. Oh, my gosh. I loved this freaking movie. I think it was so smart. It's very rare that a story shocks me at points, and I was definitely shocked at points. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense though. I love that you practically get two different movies, honestly, because the first half of the movie you assume or think it's one way, and you're like, oh yeah, that's what's happening. And then this whole different element comes into it, and you see the reality of the situation. And then they have a grander story with some missing boys that you think isn't going to play into it at all, but it completely does. And you understand the whole connection between everyone and everything. Everything's interweaved, and it's very clever. Oh, I love clever. Yeah. At some points in this movie, my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh my, that's awesome. Gross, but awesome.
Gross.
So yeah, it was well shot. It was. I liked. I have nothing. I liked it. Like I could just say I could point out everything, but I just liked everything. So yeah, it is good.
It is. And Chagrin Falls has to be one of the great town names, I think.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, let me tell you though, that was it. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful.
And it looks exactly like that. There was no exaggeration on that. That is what Chagrin Falls looks like.
Whew.
It just is. Every time there's like a bad storm and it rains too much, that waterway there that runs right through the middle of town, it gets like a freaking whitewater nightmare.
Wow.
They always the local newscasters always rush there and they're like, oh, the Chagrin River is going crazy and there's water flying everywhere. So it's an interesting spot, a great place to film a movie.
It was. I love the look of it. I'm with Crystal, and I think Dave. I absolutely love this. I love the way the story was told, and Crystal's absolutely right. It was like two movies. And it's pretty laid out, like halfway through. You get about halfway through it, and you're wondering what is going on. There's kind of these unexplained things going on. You have this family, Greg and Jackie, and who are Helen Hunt and John Tenney, and their son Connor, played by Judah Lewis, who are living in this house. And we know, like, one of the first things we find out is that apparently Jackie has had an affair, and everybody knows about it. She has cut it off, but she is getting all sorts of, emotional and kind of verbal abuse about it. She's kind of getting the silent treatment, and she is a therapist by job. And John Tenney, as Greg, is a police detective. And we have this these two kids have gone missing, and there are signs that it follows a earlier case of, I forget what it was, 6 or 8 boys that went missing like 8 years before this, and they've captured a guy and put him in prison, but this is calling the question whether or not, they got the right guy or not. So is it a copycat or not? So we got this family tension going on. We also got this sort of murder mystery or kidnapping mystery going on. And we also have just kind of weird stuff happening in the house that we don't know what's causing it. I really, really liked the acting. And just to throw these out in case you didn't recognize them, Judah Lewis was in Summer of '84 and The Babysitter.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not obvious.
The kid.
He's grown up, you know? I think if I went back, I'd recognize him. But anyway, yeah, he's the kid. What is he in this? Maybe 15, something like that?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And then, of course, Helen Hunt, who is an Academy Award-winning actress, and John Tenney, who I remember first as Sheriff Behan in Tombstone. But he's also was in like a couple of television series, The Closer and Major Crimes. So he's one of those guys that you'll recognize him, I think. And then Greg Williams plays his partner. And I should also mention Owen Teague. Holy cow, we've seen a lot of Owen Teague lately. He played one of the deckhands in a film we just did, Mary, that starred Gary Oldman.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you recognize him from Mary?
I did not. No, I did not. I did recognize the guy from Summer, but no, I did not catch the guy from Mary.
Well, and Owen Teague was also in It, Dead Hochstetter, in It Chapter 2, and is booked. There is cast to be on the new Stan TV series right now.
Cool.
Yes.
Busy man.
So this guy, and he's a good actor because, like we said, here's 3 or 4 highly visible movies that we've seen him in recently, and I didn't recognize him. He does a really good job acting. So, and I don't know if I want to tell you who he is. I guess maybe, I don't know. Do we need to spoil that?
No.
I don't think we should.
I don't think we should. So he plays a character named Alec, and he's got a friend named Mindy, played by, I don't know, would you pronounce that Libby Bearer? Libe?
I'd go with Libby.
That sounds good. Yeah.
So anyway, we've kind of cruised through the cast here, but
and then the guy from True Blood. It was the guy she had an affair with.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Todd, Sam Trammell.
Yep, that's it.
That's him.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yep, that's him.
So we also have Sam Trammell that played her, the guy that Jackie had an affair with. So anyway, this is so well written, and I love the way it started. I love the visuals. I love the offbeat sort of atonal score with just weird stuff going on in the first half. Really good cinematography, I thought. Lots of good lighting, weird shadows. I don't know. I could just go on and on. I just thought this was very well done. And the way the story's laid out, like I said, that first half, you're seeing things from the family's point of view, mostly Greg and Jackie, the parents. But then when it kind of switches perspective and you start to see what was really going on in the backgrounds and things that we didn't see, it is jaw-dropping. I would agree with that. I think you used that word, Crystal.
Well, it's so creative. Like even thinking about the first scene with the boy invisibly coming off of his bike. You know, I mean, everything points to one thing, and then you find out the truth. And I just think that's brilliant. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. Not only this one's got maybe 2 or 3 things you're wondering about, but yeah, you get an inkling to start with, and there are some, you just don't know what's going on. There are unexplained things happening at the house, and they don't quite get it, but they got so much going on between the murder investigation and the marital strife and the way their son is acting out about that they just kind of they seem to lose track of that as time goes on. So what about one of the things I really liked is it's sort of like you're watching the movie. I've watched this like 3 times now because
you're well versed in it.
Well, I love the way, and every time I found new things. If you watch it the first time and then the second time, knowing what happens, and when you go through, there's so much foretelling or foreshowing in there, things that you don't know, you don't really get it at the time, but later you do.
Of course, like the fact that he picked the house, not her.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All those things.
Or when they go to see when the two detectives go to see the one victim that escaped, and he totally starts to freak out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get why that happened, but later on. So I just enjoyed the heck out of this. The house is beautiful, and those shots off the lake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how many ways I could say it, but it's very. Even interweaving these two things together, if they showed them in real time, I don't think you'd find a hole in it anywhere. Different characters know different things at different times. So, at one time, Alec and Mindy are kind of split up, and they don't necessarily know the same things till later.
Well, and it's brilliant because with him, you kind of think his character is just unhinged. It's like, what is wrong with him? But it's interesting because he shows so much compassion toward her, which so you think his behavior is very, very much that of a psychopath, but the compassion he's showing proves otherwise. And then you find out later, of course, it all makes sense as to why. It's amazing. Yeah. I just think that's amazing because I found that I was like, wait, no, he really does care. Weird. Oh, yep. I think that was even very well written. Something as simple as that. Character studies are very important. So I think it was done very, very well.
Dave, what did you think of the acting? I mean, it's hard to carry that off, that somebody's acting could mean different things when you know different things about them.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, no, I think it was all stellar. I mean, we haven't seen Helen Hunt in a lot of anything of late. I don't know why she's been so quiet, but she has. But it was great seeing her on the screen again. She's exceptional. But everybody in this is exceptional, all the way across the board. I mean, of course, you were going to call Helen Hunt out because she's Helen Hunt, but everyone else definitely keeps up with her, to that level. So I've got no complaints. It was incredibly well written, and the actors, pulled it off flawlessly, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yep.
So, Crystal and I were talking about this earlier. The scene where Connor, the teenage boy, is at the dinner table with his mom, and he blows up at her and tells her, basically that you've ruined our life and you need to pay for it. You need to suffer some consequences.
Right.
And his mom is just kind of frozen. She doesn't respond. I liked that. I liked the frankness of his sort of explosion, and I thought it kind of fit in with the idea that this is sort of, to a certain extent, she's kind of maybe a stereotype of a therapist. Like the first thing she says to him is something like, I get that you're feeling mad about this or something.
Okay, so what's interesting is the reason why Jeff is bringing this up is because I said that boy needs to be put in check. Okay, what happened between his mother and his father is none of his damn business. And if they chose to stay together, then that's for them to work out and not for him to freaking, get up in their business and make some crazy remarks like that. To me, that was like unacceptable. Shocking, actually, that he would have so much control. So so Jeff loved, this is actually the only one, but I'm not finding fault with the movie. I totally agree with him, though. That is something that could probably happen. It just irritates me.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's probably an honest interpretation of something that could transpire in that situation.
Absolutely. I think it totally would happen. I just wanted to beat the poop out of that. I was like, really, kid? Really, kid?
I could tell you, I can't imagine either of my sons acting that way. So,
well, as hard as it is going to be for the parents to work this out after an affair, they don't need their child butting in. That's the worst possible thing. That's all. I was like, oh, this guy.
Well, and one of the things I was thinking at the beginning was these guys are, in the early scenes, all I could think of was, holy crap, she's the therapist, but yet this might be more dysfunctional than the family in Hereditary, you know.
Yeah.
They're like, nobody's talking. She says, she makes pancakes for her son. That's his birthday thing.
Yes.
And
the
she keeps telling her
so
husband,
weird.
we need to talk. And he just looks at her and walks away. I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to go well. So anyway, yeah, I thought that was interesting how they set that up, because there's more to it than just the thrill or story of it. These are characters, you know, you get to learn some things about them. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. And once again, I see you. Final thoughts, score, and favorite scene, Dave.
I get to go first. Firsties. Let's see. I enjoyed this film a lot. You know, the local connection for me just even sweetens the pot a little bit. I love seeing places that I've driven through or drive through, you know, on a semi-regular basis. It's just great to see high quality work, you know, coming out of this area. But the story is smart. It's really well written. Just the pacing of the entire thing is perfect. Like you guys were saying, the almost two films in one. It's fascinating to watch play out. And, you know, I just loved it. Held my attention all the way through. At no point ever was I bored in this movie. And there are some slower moments in this. It's not all action-packed, riveting type stuff, but, you know, you just get so wrapped up in these characters and their situations that, you know, you want to see what happens to them. Favorite scene. This really is kind of a tough one, but I'm going to go with when we get into the latter half of the story and we find out what really happened to the boyfriend in the basement. Oh, yeah. That was really kind of a shocking, scene. It really was. I mean, I had my suspicions.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I had my suspicions. Boy, they solidified those suspicions 10 times over. So it was good, and seeing it through the eyes of who we see it through just made it all the more intense, I think. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to kind of mirror my score from Daniel Was It Real. I'm going to give this a 3.75.
Okay, 3.75. So, Crystal, what are your final thoughts, score, and favorite scene for I See You?
So, obviously, I said I love this movie, and I do. I think it's very clever. It's very fun. It's very interesting. And I say watch it. I am going slightly higher. I'm giving this a 4. Yep. I know.
Nice.
That's a big one for me.
Top 10? Top 10 for you?
Yeah. It's definitely going to make my top 10. I just, like I said, it's very shocking that something surprises me to that degree. But when it does, I'm like, oh, that's so impressive. When it's done well, you know, when it's not something that would be out of character. It all made sense. Mine is kind of similar to Dave's. It's all about the reveal. And for me, it was when we find out why he was peeing in the bed.
Oh, yeah, that was good too. That is good.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow.
How bizarre is that? I can't, would you not wake up if that was happening? Seriously.
I don't know.
Well, he took a couple Ambiens.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so that was a bizarre scene for sure.
Yep.
And both of these movies had some pills floating around in them.
Yeah.
We didn't always know what they all were. Nice. I'm absolutely fascinated by stories like this and the way this story was told, and the number of times that I've watched it and still see things that mean something that I didn't maybe catch right away. I thought they all did a great job acting, but I thought Owen Teague might have excelled. The different faces he looked, sometimes fear, sometimes anger, sometimes a little psychotic, sometimes caring. He just was excellent. Also, you got to tell Al Tuscas that mask was awesome, because that was, you know, it's one of those things that's creepy, or it could be innocent, but it could also be really creepy. I guess it was pretty much full on creepy.
Yeah, definitely.
And some of the times when he had the mask on, and I hope I'm not giving too much away, but he'd take the mask off, and the look on his face.
Oh yeah.
Would tell you, because when you have the mask on, you don't know what's going on, right? In their head, what they're thinking emotionally. So I just love that. The whole structure, layout, the writing, and the way the story was told. All right. I'm giving this a 4.25.
Nice. Top 10 for you.
Probably. And I my favorite scene, I'm taking the opening scene where the camera is zooming in on Chagrin Falls, right? Or not even zooming, sort of flying in. Maybe it's like a drone or something.
Yeah, it looked like a drone shot. Yeah,
but it kind of follows the river. Starts out as a rocky creek and follows it till it's bigger and comes over the bridge, and you could see the railings on the bridge are decorated with red, white, and blue bunting, and you see some kids buying some ice cream cones, and then you see the one boy get on his bike and ride away, and then we follow him, and then what happens with him was my first.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it lulls you into this small town America feeling, and then boom,
supernatural.
Yeah, you don't know what happened. He goes flying off his bike. So I really like that. These were a couple of good movies.
Yeah,
so it was a good week.
Yep.
So once again, Daniel Isn't Real, directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer from Samuel Goldwyn Films, and ICU, directed by Adam Randall. Both of them on digital on demand December 6th. I think ICU might have saw a limited theatrical release as well.
Yeah, they definitely played up in Cleveland for sure.
Okay.
They had a weekend run up at one of the theaters up there.
God, I bet it'd be awesome in the theater.
Oh, yeah, both of them. I would like to see both of these in the theater, I think. So anyway, check them out. This is episode 94. We're inching up towards episode 100. And hopefully next time we'll see when Doc gets rid of his incognito disguise and joins us again. Thank you so much for joining me, Crystal, and Dave.
Of course.
Yay.
I loved it. A lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
These are a couple of good movies, and say good night.
Good night.
Good night.